Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Taking Over the Photo Pit podcast. We are here with episode 41 and Julia of J Fino Photo on Instagram, and I am so excited to have her on here. Julia is someone who I haven't met before, but reached out to her to have her on the podcast because her work is that fantastic. When you look at her Instagram, it's really bold, it's really bright. She does a really great job with smoke and haze and using the lights and the fog in a venue, and it's just really beautiful, and all of her work really just captures me, and I've fallen in love with it. So I wanted to have her on the podcast to share her tips, what she's up to, and her story. So really excited about this one, and we're gonna jump right into it. Well, hi Julia, I am so excited to have you here. I have been waiting to talk to you because I messaged you last week and I was like, this is going to be a great one. I'm so excited to dive into your photography journey, and I'm just so excited and happy to have you here. So let's kick it off to you. Can you tell us about yourself, a little bit of a quick intro of where you're located, your background, how you got started in photography, all of the good things, you know?
Yeah, of course. So I'm 21 currently. I'm based in Boston. I'm originally from northern Massachusetts, so not too far away. I went to school up in New Hampshire for high school. I currently go to Northeastern University in Boston, but I'm actually graduating next month. So I'm in the middle of midterms and finals and everything right now.
Congrats.
Yeah. I'm actually majoring in computer science, which I know is very different from an art major or anything kind of in the photography world, but I think there's a lot of parts of that really kind of give me different skills. I like kind of having a separation between my job and then my photography, since my photography is not currently my full-time job. I got into photography probably 8-ish years ago. I got my first DSLR camera in high school. And I actually started out with a lot of astrophotography, which is pictures of the night sky, the Milky Way, all that type of stuff. I like to say that it's pretty much the most low light photography you can get in the middle of the night. So maybe that helped prepare me for concerts, since usually there's also not much light going on there. And concert photography specifically, I've been doing for about 2.5 years.
That's awesome. What brought you into astrophotography? Were you just hey, I love the stars, love the night sky, and then got into that?
Yeah, I think I saw a YouTube video or something of I didn't realize it was something you could do with just a normal camera that you could buy. And I think I saw someone do it and it was really cool. And yeah, I did that for a while in high school. And I've gotten a couple cool photos from that.
That's awesome. I love the variation in photography, and that's one of the things that I talk about here a lot. Obviously we're all concert photographers, but jumping into different styles of photography is always great, especially if you're honing your talents on the lowest light, as you said. Mm-hmm. So what kind of concerts do you shoot? Are you currently shooting everything? Do you kind of get drawn to one specific genre? What are you going after when it comes to concerts?
I tend to shoot things in the music genres that I listen to, which tends to be on the pop / alternative side of things, but I've definitely shot everything. If I know that a show is going to have cool production, or I've seen videos of a show before and it looks really cool, I'll shoot it. I don't really limit myself there, but for the most part I do tend to shoot indie alternative type pop groups.
Love that. So when you got started in concert photography, can you tell us a bit about how that happened? What was it like getting into concerts? Were there any struggles or fun things that happened to you while you were getting started in this industry?
Yeah, so I feel like my start is maybe a little bit different than some other people's. So I started shooting for my school's magazine. So basically cool. Every fall, all the school clubs will set up tables outside, and you can walk around and talk to the representatives. And I saw this club had like a poster up and it had concert photos on it, and it said like, take pictures of concerts, like have them in our magazine. And I just thought that was so cool. And I never realized that the people shooting concerts like are like quote unquote like normal people. I always thought like you had to be so high up in like the press world to even be considered to do that. So I didn't realize it was just like a bunch of 20-year-old girls like shooting their favorite bands. So I joined that, and something that comes with joining that club is that you don't like need a portfolio. So it makes it super easy to kind of get your foot in the door and start in the concert photography world. So I'm really grateful for that. I know for some people it's hard to just cold email these publications without any prior experience. So that really helped me kind of work my way up from the tiny little shows to the bigger shows. And now that I'm graduating and I won't be able to shoot for them anymore, it's definitely helped me now find other publications that I'm able to shoot for.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Did you have anyone in that like club that was kind of like a mentor? Did they give you like tips and advice, or were they really just kind of like that path or that bridge to getting into these shows?
I think definitely there were some like mentors there. So when I joined there, so in the club we have like obviously like e-board members, so like the people in charge of all the different departments of the magazine. So the photo director at the time, I'll shout her out, Emily Gringerton. You could have her on the podcast. She's awesome. She was like the nicest. She loved concert photography. So we would have like meetings every other week with the whole photo department, and she would give presentations on like how to edit your pictures, or how to use Photoshop, or how to reach out to artists like to get paid and shoot different ways other than publications. So she just really wanted to help everyone, and she was awesome. And then she graduated, and we had more photo directors in there, and then now I'm actually photo director.
Amazing.
So I'm the one every week talking to everyone about just how to shoot for publication and giving them tips about concert photography.
That's so awesome. I love that you have also like leaned into that path of passing on the knowledge, because I think getting that knowledge is so difficult, and having just, you know, people to come back to when you're starting out to ask them questions. I absolutely love that. That sounds so fun. That sounds like a great way to start, and that's really exciting. That kind of leads into my next question, because you were talking about graduating. So like, what are you doing right now, and what does that look like for your future? Like, are you have to switch publications, I'm assuming, or you have a new publication that you're shooting for? Like, can you tell us about like what are the next steps for you, and like what are you planning on doing after college?
Yeah, so I think I definitely prepared myself pretty well. So right now, so Tastemakers is the school publication. That's what it's called. I do still shoot for them, but honestly, mostly out of convenience. At this point, I shoot for probably 4 or 5 publications. So for me, losing Tastemakers isn't a huge deal. I think the biggest thing that I'll lose with them is that they have a pretty good reputation in the Boston area. They're a pretty big publication. So as far as getting into the bigger shows, that might be more of a struggle with the smaller publications I'll be shooting for. But for the most part, I think I'll be fine. I always encourage people in Tastemakers who are graduating to start reaching out pretty early to other publications, just to try to get on their team, and so that you can keep shooting shows after you graduate.
Since you said that you're in computer science, are you planning on having like a full-time job when you leave? Are you going to lean into photography? Like, what's your ideal goal?
I'm definitely going to have a full-time job. I'll be staying in Boston, and at least starting out with a full-time job. Photography definitely does not make as much money as people think it does, especially concert photography. So I like having the full-time job, and then I can go at night to all my concerts and have fun.
I do the same thing. I am also a 9-to-5, what I call corporate girly. Love it. Love having those like nights and weekends to do concert photography, and I think it's a good mix. It just seems very daunting for people that they're like, holy cow, you're working a lot. You can definitely overdo it sometimes, but like when you're in college, I feel like college and photography is probably a lot harder than day job.
Way harder, yeah.
So for like anyone listening who is also in school and is doing school and concert photography and you're worried about a corporate balance, I promise you'll be fine. But I love that. I love seeing other people like pursue dreams outside of concert photography as well. But do you have like touring on your mind? Are you like, hey, I want to try these different aspects? Or are you just kind of like, I love what I'm doing? I'm just very curious.
I think it would have to be a pretty big opportunity, especially this like early on in my like corporate career, to consider like a touring type situation. But it's always something I'd be open to in the future, depending on like the offer and who it was. But right now, I mostly shoot in Boston. If I really like a group, sometimes I'll follow them down to New York and shoot there too. So that's enough for me right now.
How far of a trip is that?
It's 4 hours on the train. It's not bad at all. And then I think if you fly, it's like an hour and a half. So it's really close.
We were just talking a little bit about money and saying that there's not a ton of money in concert photography. But you currently have prints and you sell prints on your website. So I wanted to talk through kind of like that process, whether or not that's been like profitable for you. Has it been fun for you? I know there's always people that have questions about like selling prints and whether or not that's something that they should get into. So I'm curious about your experience and kind of what led you to start selling, and whether or not you're like going to continue it. Do you find it successful? All of those questions.
Honestly, to be completely truthful, it's not very lucrative at all. I did set it up. It was pretty easy to set up. I used Darkroom. They have a really nice interface for uploading pictures and setting prices and everything. But it's just really hard to, first of all, advertise that you have a print shop. And then second of all, like, obviously, for the most part, at least when I opened my print shop, I hadn't shot that many, like, recognizable, like, big bands at that point. So even though the pictures looked cool, like, nobody knew who the artist was, so they don't want a print of them necessarily. I think I have had more success with prints, just like people will like DM me and be like, I really like this photo, like could I get a print of it? And I'll just sell it to them like that. I've had my parents buy prints of groups that I've shot that they like. So I think that's been more lucrative than the actual print site itself.
Probably easier to just be like, any photos that you've seen of mine, DM me and we'll like talk through it instead of like taking the time to fill out the print shop. I don't sell prints, and I'm always curious of like that process and whether or not it is like lucrative and profitable for people. But I've heard good things about Darkroom, so I might look into it. But I like the custom prints idea of just, hey, reach out and go from here. Pivoting to a question that I think that I say this on one of the episodes, like 2 back or so. I feel like this podcast season is going to be all about Taylor Swift, because every time I see pictures of her, like I gotta ask about the Eras tour and everything. So I saw that you photographed her. I'm very envious. I did not get approved. I did not get tickets. So I'm living vicariously through everyone who has. I would love to hear about your experience, how you got approved, or did you shoot from the crowd? Because I've heard a bit of both. So I'm just want to hear about it. I want to know all of the details because it just looks so beautiful, and your photos of her are just incredible. So I wanted to ask about that.
Thank you so much. So I only got approved for tickets. I did not get a photo pass. So I got approved for 2 review tickets, because everyone they approved, they always give them 2 tickets, which I think is the nicest thing ever, especially for a big
so sweet.
For a big artist like that. So they give you 2 tickets on the floor, usually pretty close. That's just where they put the review tickets. So I have my own point and shoot camera that's pretty small. For any photographers listening, it's 24 to 200 millimeters, which is decent. That would be fine if you're in like the first few rows of a pit, or like you're in the photo pit. It's totally fine. But at a stadium, that's not great. When she came to like the end of the catwalk, because that's where our tickets were, it was perfect. But when she was on the main stage or kind of in the middle, I needed something longer. So I rented a bigger point and shoot that I think was like 24 to 600 or something ridiculous.
Oh, okay.
It looked like a DSLR. Like, I'm surprised they let me in, but technically the lens didn't come off, and that's usually the rule at most places. If the lens doesn't come off, you can bring it in. So that's what I used, and so any like further back shots, that's what I used for that. And honestly, I kind of enjoyed shooting from the crowd. Obviously, I would have loved to be there officially, but when you shoot from the crowd, you can shoot the whole show. You don't have to like go back to your car after the third song to put your gear away. So I really enjoyed it. So I got tickets to Saturday. So she did 3 shows where I was. So I got tickets to Saturday. I got tickets to Sunday. My friend who got approved officially had gotten tickets to Friday. So then we swapped. We were each other's plus ones. So
oh my God,
we both went Friday and Sunday, and then I had previously purchased a Saturday ticket for a lot of money. So I actually was able to go to all 3 shows, which is insane and something that never would have happened if I was not in the concert photography world. So I think a lot of people have been shooting her from the crowd, and I've seen some really, really cool pictures.
I have definitely thought that the photos that I love of her the most are the ones from the crowd, because I don't know, there's something about it. I don't know if it's like the energy or just like, you know, you guys are able to pick and choose different like times of the concert and like different moments throughout, because the concert's like 3 hours long, right?
Yeah. It's long.
So you have a lot of time. I know you said that you are limited to when she was coming down the catwalk, but probably more opportunities than something at like the first 3 songs. And
exactly,
when people are in the pit shooting the first 3, it seems like they're using a telephoto, like zoom lens, and it's, I don't know. I just feel like the vibe isn't always there. So I've been absolutely adoring all of these crowd shots. And have been just like in love with them. So I love that you had all 3 days. Did you bring that camera in for all 3 days?
I did bring it in for all 3 days. I didn't use it on Saturday. Saturday was the crazy Gillette Stadium rain show, and it was the most rain I'd ever seen in my life. So it stayed in the little clear plastic bag that I had, but I did bring it all 3 days. But all the pictures you see on my Instagram are from either Friday or Sunday.
I'm so jealous. It just sounds like such a fun concert, and I'm assuming you're a Taylor Swift fan, so you must have just like enjoyed being there for those 3 days as well.
Yeah, it was so much fun. I definitely was not a huge like Swiftie or anything, but her concert, just the thought put into it and like all the production and everything was just incredible. It was like a great show to see.
I have photographed a ton of bands and been like at concerts where I'm not necessarily like the biggest fan of theirs, but sometimes when the crowd is so, I guess, like intense and in love with the artist, like you fall in love with them anyway. It like doesn't matter the music if the fans are just like so awesome. So like, yes, Taylor Swift does a great job with all of the background of just the production, but I think the fans build up such like a vibe that they feed off of each other, and you can see it in photos. Like she's just glowing every single photo of just like happiness, fun interaction with the crowd. And I think that you capture that really well. A lot of your shots are like her overlooking the crowd and her looking up, and just like you can see this I don't know, happiness on her face. And I love those captures. I just, you did a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Diving into a little bit more about like your style of concert photography, I'm very curious about like what you try and capture, anything that you like look at during a concert that you try and focus on, like something that is unique to you, or like that you kind of lean into a lot. I'm always curious about, everyone talks about like standing out. There's so many concert photographers. There's so many photographers in the world. There's so many iPhone photos. So like, what do you do to kind of like make your photos stand out? Or what do you do that's kind of like unique to you?
Yeah, I think this is the question I have the most written down for. So
love it. Let's get into it.
So I'll start with actually shooting. So when I actually shoot, I think I tend to like wider shots. So one of my favorite lenses that I have is my 14-24. So I try, as long as the venue isn't like too tiny, I do try to get like full body shots with some of whatever backdrop the artist decided to bring with them. I definitely put a lot of focus on framing when I shoot. It's just a personal pet peeve. I can't stand when there's like a foot cut off or a hand cut off or like the top of a guitar cut off. Like, framing is really important to me in my shots. If I'm not doing a full body shot, I still want there to be thought, I guess, put into my framing, even when it's like zoomed in closer. If I have like their face, part of the guitar, I don't know how to describe it. I just like, there's certain things that I want included in the picture when I take it. And then for me, honestly, this might be a controversial opinion, but I enjoy editing a lot more than I enjoy shooting. Obviously, like, being up close to these artists for the first 3 songs is like incredible and so much fun. But like, as other than that, I think editing is where my work really shines. All the like raw photos that I get out of my camera look nothing like what you see on my Instagram. And I feel like I get a lot of messages from people like, oh, like, what camera do you use? What lens do you use? And like, I'll tell them, but I also like really try to emphasize that a lot of concert photography is learning how to edit, because it's so dark and like sometimes boring. Like, you have to add in some light or add in some type of effect to make the picture more interesting. So I edit all my photos in Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom. And then I also edit all my photos in Photoshop, which I think is something that a lot of people don't do. It definitely adds some time to the process. But I use Photoshop to I use like blur layers and stuff to kind of give the pictures a glow. I don't know. I guess if you look at my pictures, you might be able to tell what I mean, but I do try to get like a glow or like a brighter look to them using Photoshop. But yeah, my biggest thing is that like gear for the most part like doesn't matter. I'm lucky in the last 2.5 years to have built up some pretty nice gear, but I started out shooting on just like a 50 millimeter on my little Nikon camera from high school, and that was totally fine for a really long time. And honestly, a big chunk of my Instagram too is shot on my point and shoot camera. So a lot of these artists that I like, they just don't approve photographers ever. So I'll get my point and shoot, I'll wait in line, and I'll be 3rd or 4th row in the crowd, and I'll just shoot from there. So a lot of concert photography is editing to get the bright colors and like the light and all of that. I really enjoy editing. I had a show last week where it was really dark, like really dark. And it took me I sat down and it took me like a whole day to get these photos like satisfactory. Yeah. A lot of times I'll put like a background mask or something and like brighten up the background, add in some color, do stuff like that. So yeah, I'm definitely heavier on the editing than some people are. Some people I know like to take a more journalistic approach where they just want to capture exactly what it looked like, where I'm a little more like, I'm okay with bending reality a little bit to add in some color or to add in some like interesting effects.
I love that. I am more of the journalistic approach because for my publications, I have to be. But
Yeah.
I am always inspired when someone's like, hey, I open up Photoshop. Like, my mind is blown because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. I do
Mm-hmm.
take a long time to edit. I can't say that I'm an editing fan, so I love this perspective of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I totally know what you mean about the glow in your photos. You have a lot of photos that have really beautiful like backlights that you have definitely like they look real. They look like it is, and maybe it is real. But like that glow that is in almost all of your photos, I know what you mean. So it's really nice to see those like pops of color and like the accentuated lights. That stood out to me. So I love that you're mentioning it because I know exactly what you're talking about. That's very cool. When it comes to like, I have to ask because when it comes to photos and editing, like what is your turnaround time? Are you working with publications that allow like a longer turnaround time? I've seen anywhere from like publications saying like, hey, next day we need these photos, or we need these photos in like 3 to 5 days. So do you take a long time to edit, or are you like, now that you know kind of like what you want, you kind of go in and knock it out? I'm curious about like the timing process.
Yeah, so as long as the like lighting in the photos wasn't like too bad, usually I can turn it around the same night. I don't have to. So for most of the publications I shoot for, it's usually between like 3 and 5 days. I have to have the
Right.
photos in and then also a review if I was writing a review for that show. So that's always fine. I can always typically get it done in that time range. If I'm hired to shoot like for the artist, I will pretty much always have it done, at least like a good chunk of them by the next morning so that they can like post them on social
Mm-hmm.
media and stuff, and then I'll have the rest of them done either by the end of that day or early the following day. I've definitely gotten to the point where I can like replicate what I want pretty quickly. So in Lightroom, I don't really use presets. I know some people swear by their presets, and I wish I was a preset person because it would make my life so much easier. But
Yep.
I've tried, and they just don't ever look the same across shows. So a lot of times I'll be able to make a preset or two for a show, and then those will work for that set. But then they'll never work again on any other set. So it helps, but I definitely don't have my like go-to presets that some people do. But in Photoshop, I for the like glow effect that I'm talking about, I do have a Photoshop action that's like 25
Mm,
steps that I can just hit play and it does it. And I've pretty
great.
much gotten that where I don't have to tweak it and that can just be run on every picture. So now I'm like pretty quick, I would say, with pictures. I probably spend maybe like 2 to 5 minutes per picture, which maybe for some people that sounds like a lot of time, but that's probably about how much I spend.
Yeah, I'm always in Lightroom. Love Lightroom. I am also not a Photoshop, preset person. And it's crazy how people have totally different processes. So I love hearing how you go through it. I think that's incredible. You talked a little bit about gear, and I have to ask, what camera do you have? Because I'm always curious about camera brands and what people kind of like are drawn to.
Yeah, so I shoot on a Sony A7 IV and a Sony A7R4. So the R4 is just like it's kind of like a super high resolution camera. I think it's like 60 megapixels or something crazy. So they definitely both have their pros and cons. So because the R4 is this higher megapixel camera, it actually picks up noise a lot easier. So it's not great
Oh,
when it's dark. Like if it's dark, I usually just like won't use it, honestly. So that can get annoying to not have two bodies at like darker shows. But the upside of the higher resolution camera is that at like festivals or at like soundboard shoots, I can shoot in crop mode. So you get like an extra, like, I forget what the factor is, like 1.5 or something more times
mm-hmm.
more on your lens. So if you're shooting on like a 600 millimeter lens, it's actually like 8 or 900. So you can do that. and you're still shooting at like 30 megapixels, which is what my A7 IV shoots at. So you get a lot more range and a lot more cropping ability, which I really like for festivals or like big arena soundboard type shoots. But I would definitely say my A7 IV is my favorite. For lenses, I kind of have like the trio that people talk about, which is a 14 to 24, 24 to 70, and a 70 to 200. I'm a big fan of third-party lenses. They're so much cheaper, like thousands of dollars cheaper, and I've never noticed an issue with picture quality. I love all my lenses. I've never had an issue. The only lens now that I really ever have to rent is like a big festival or soundboard lens, but depending on how many festivals I shoot this summer, I might just buy one because it's going to start to get expensive to keep renting that every few weekends.
I just went through the same process and wound up buying one because I was like, okay, I'm already $400 of rentals into this lens. Like, I'm just going to go buy it. But I feel like we need people in our area to do like little rentals within each other, like group rentals.
That would be
because
fun,
it's just like, I don't need this lens all the time, and I'm just like, now I invested money into this lens that sits for, you know, almost all the time until festival season. So I totally feel you about those, like the big stadium shoot lenses. They're a little brutal. And you mentioned before that your 14 to 24 is like your favorite. You really love those wide shots.
Yeah, so at like small to medium venues, that's definitely my favorite lens. Once the stage gets like so high that it's taller than me, it's too wide. And usually I'll just use my 24 to 70. But I also really like my 14 to 24 for portraits, which might be a little bit unconventional. I take most of my portraits on like a really wide lens to kind of you can get some cool effects if you're like close to the artist, or if you're like down on the ground, you can make them look tall. You can get some really cool perspective shots with a wider lens. I know that's, whenever I tell people that, sometimes that's like a little bit unconventional because people tend to use longer, like 80 millimeter type lenses for portraits. Definitely in like the headshot world, that's what I'll use. But for any type of creative portraits with like artists or like backstage, I really like my 14 to 24.
That's awesome. Good to know. Okay, so the last question that I have for you is just like best tips, advice, anything that you would like to pass on to the listeners. I always love to end with this because everyone's advice is a little bit different. And for anyone starting out, I want to give them a little bit of something to kind of like learn from and take from. So would love to hear your advice here.
Yeah, so I think I have 4 things written down here. They're all a little bit different. But so the first thing I put on here is, I think you'll hear a lot of people say this, but it's really just to put yourself out there and make friends, talk to people in the photo pit. When they have a job that they can't do, they'll refer you. That's a great way to start getting paid work or even publication work if they can't shoot last minute for something. I've covered for friends on plenty of different publications before that I don't shoot for, but that I was kind of like a guest on just for those 1 or 2 shows. My next tip would definitely be to like start small. I know it's frustrating for some people, but it will take a while to get into these bigger shows, and that's just kind of how it is. It took me over a year to shoot my first arena show, and even since then I've only shot 1 more. So in these 2.5 years, I've only like officially shot 2 arena shows and 1 stadium show. I might like look successful and I go to all these shows, but like if your mind is like, I only want to shoot these big shows, like it's not necessarily realistic. And honestly, sometimes the smaller shows are fun. So definitely give them a chance and kind of build up your portfolio at those smaller shows. If you don't have a portfolio, a great way to start is to go to venues that like don't have a photo policy. We have a few in Boston that I always recommend people go to. So you can just bring your camera. You buy a ticket, you can bring your camera, and you get the same pictures you would have gotten if you had gotten approved to shoot that show. So then you can take those pictures and put them in your portfolio, and then you can start trying to apply to actual publications. So that's always a great place to start. Get a point and shoot camera if you're someone who likes to get GA at shows. Um, Again, I've taken some of my favorite photos on my point and shoot. I wasn't there any type of officially, and I'll take these pictures and I'll get messages, how did you get approved? I'm like, I didn't. Like, you can get so many great pictures from the crowd with a point and shoot. Even as you saw, like Taylor Swift, those were all point and shoot photos too. And then I think my last piece of advice, if you're shooting for a publication, is to always shoot the opener. And I always tell people this because I shot the opener for a band at like this small venue, and they liked the photo so much that they reached out to me and they wanted to put it on their sweatshirt, like their merch for their cool. For their upcoming tour. And like that opportunity never like would have happened if I didn't shoot the opener. So always get there early and shoot the opener. It's a great experience, and they're much more likely to like see your pictures, interact with your pictures, and maybe something can come of it. If they come back to the area, they might hire you. So it's a great way to network, to shoot the openers.
I love it so much. Well, thank you so much, Julia, for joining the podcast and sitting down with me and telling me those were great tips, great advice. So it was so lovely to talk to you and hear about your journey, your perspective. This has been really great. So thank you so much for sitting down with me, and hopefully I'll make it to the East Coast or you make it over here and we'll see each other in the pit.